Frontline with Courtney Kenny, and I'm Tom Parisi, and today we got a great set of guests.
All right, Tom.
Sounds good. All right, here we go. It's another fantastic episode of the Frontline podcast. I'm Tom Parisi. He's Courtney Kenny, and today we are joined by a veteran of many NHL games, 846 to be precise, with Washington, Buffalo, St. Louis, Tampa Bay, San Jose, and Nashville, and last but not least, an original member of the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim and North Bay Centennial, Billy Houlder. Billy, we are happy to have you on the podcast. I've been waiting for this one for a long time.
Thanks for having me, guys. Looking forward.
Okay, I gotta ask you. You're named captain of the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they put you on waivers. What the heck was that like?
Oh, I tell you, that was awful. I moved from I got traded from San Jose. Now, it's funny, I got to get all my movements correct. I got traded from San Jose to Tampa, and then obviously named the captain. And it's funny because I just didn't handle it well. I really kind of took everything on my shoulders, and I felt everything was my responsibility. And I wasn't a young player at the time. I was 30 years old. I'd already played 10 years pro. But I just, when we didn't play well, I just felt like I didn't play well, and it was because of me. And if I could play better, we'd win. And it was really bad. Like, and I liked my first 2 years in Tampa, but that was really bad. And I remember I got the phone call from Rick Dudley, and who I'd played for Rick in Buffalo, and I played for him in San Diego. And he obviously told me that I was moving on to Nashville. And I remember sitting, looking through the door, like I hadn't even unpacked yet. And I was like, oh my God, how am I going to explain this to, like, okay, now we got to move again. But we're not even unpacked yet. And we got to get a new house. And so, yeah, everything's a story, right?
We're going to circle back to it for sure, because I got all kinds of questions, but let's start. A kid from Thunder Bay ends up playing for the North Bay Centennials. And take us through those first few years, mid-'80s, playing for North Bay. What's going through your mind?
Well, it was funny because and I can't remember now, a scout had phoned me in Thunder Bay and asked if I'd come to North Bay. And I had told him, I remember specifically saying, I'd rather go to a Southern team like Peterborough or Kitchener or which were other teams that had contacted me because of the travel. Like I don't want my schooling to suffer. And like my schooling was so not a priority, but like I don't even want to tell you how bad that was. So anyway, I worked at Safeways, and I came home, and my dad said, you got drafted to North Bay, which I was fine with, really. So I came to North Bay. My dad drove me down for training camp, and he clearly didn't like what I've told the story many a times, because he stayed for the first week of training camp. So he walked up during a scrimmage. He walked up to Bert and said, well, if you're going to release him, could you release him now so I don't have to come back up and pick him up? And I was like, I think I'm probably just happy that my dad caught Bert maybe on a good day, because if it would have been a bad day, that could have been it. I could have been sent back home, So it was really unique, I guess, or I don't know what you'd call it, maybe a fish out of water, or because we never had junior hockey in Thunder Bay. Like we never had OHL hockey at the time. Like it wasn't really televised. Like I had really no idea what I was getting into. Like I remember getting in my first fight in camp, and I was like, wow, like this is okay. I guess we fight now. Because we never had fights in midget or bantam or anything. So it was a real, again, fish out of water thing. But as things went on, we adjust and you adapt to the different circumstances that are come to you. And you really either kind of sink or swim. Back then. There wasn't so much support as there is now, which is great now. Back then it was, like no one really came to see how you're feeling or how's your billet family, or, you're missing home, or it was just like play or get sent away, so that worked out pretty well. I still remember my very first game we played in Hamilton in Mountain Arena. And this was before they had moved into Copps Coliseum. And I don't know if you know Mountain Arena, but it seemed like at the time it was about like West Ferris. And these fans were just like hanging over our benches with the glass around it. And Hamilton had a tough team. I don't know how far you guys go back. We had a guy like Curtis Cullen on our team. And Curtis was he was tough. So anyway, he gets in a fight with their tough guy, Jim Boy, and just cuts him right across the forehead. He's bleeding down his shirt onto his eyes. And I got this guy in fatigues is behind our bench, and he's banging on the glass, and he's banging. And I'm literally at that point thinking, like, if you give me a bus ticket, I'll go home. I don't know what I'm in for. Like, this is not what I thought I signed up for. I remember that like it was yesterday. But anyway, things worked out.
I would say so.
Pretty decent teams. Like my 3 years, my first year we had, I think we had 11 rookies. And actually, Darren Turcotte will probably tell you the same story. Like Bert came in one day, and I don't know what possessed him to say this, but he said, "You guys get to third place or better in the standings, no curfew." Well, didn't we go win like 6 straight? And we went straight to third place, which was, I'm sure he didn't think was going to happen. Like 11 first-year players is a lot of first-year players.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And anyway, so we had one night of no curfew. That was it. Curfew back on next night. I don't know what happened. I wasn't privy to, like, something must have happened that went sideways that night. But we went back and we finished anyway. We finished in third overall that in our division that year. And then the other 2 years I was here, we finished first. So it was good.
We had Nick Kiprios on. We've had John Winstanley on, who both obviously played for Bert Templeton. I asked Nick, what was it actually like playing for Bert? Because we heard he could ride his players and whatnot. He said most of the time he could ride his players. Just what was your experience like with Bert?
He rode me. He most certainly. I will say I don't think. I think he was really fair. He taught me a ton. Like, he really, really simplified the game. But he had really no mercy. Like, it was whatever came out of his mouth was what he was feeling at the time. And usually it was pretty bang on. And he didn't care if you were the third-year guy, leading scorer of the team, or the rookie guy that just got called up. Like, I'll always remember when he came in, when Mike Hartman, again, there's another name. He came in and it was between the periods, and he came right in the dressing room. He said, "Why did I trade for you? Like, you don't score, you don't fight, you don't pass the puck, you don't hit. Like, what did I trade you for?" And just turned around and left the room. And I remember Mike saying out loud, like, not so that Bert could hear, but saying out loud, saying, "I fight." And sure enough, he started ripping through the league, just fighting everyone. So partially a good motivator too. Like, it'd be really hard for me to say something bad about Bert. We had 3, what I would call, 2 really good teams, and then one overachieving team, I thought, our first year. I thought he was a really, really good teacher of the game, but absolutely did not give an inch. Whatever he demanded, if you were not going to live up to that, then you would be moved around or sent home. I mean, the year before I came, he sent home Carmen Vanny and someone else anyway for like skipping curfew or something. Like, that was it. Like, sent home.
I can't imagine that kind of stuff flying these days, just sending a kid home without some kind of expectations. But we've also talked with some billet families and some kids, and I just want to get your experience, being away from home for the first time. What was the experience like, and how did your parents treat it?
Well, I do remember my dad, like when he drove me to my billet home, which was Marine Norm Shaw up on Francis Street. And I still remember him shaking my hand, like, "Okay, good luck." And I was like, okay. Not any words of advice. Not any words of advice. Just like, "Okay, good luck." And so he left. And Norma and Marie Shaw were fantastic. Like really doting, like they were super nice people. And I lived there, and I remember it was Thanksgiving, and they had to go to Kitchener. I think Norm was from Kitchener, and they had to go for a family event or something. So I got moved out of there for a week to Eva Leslie's. And one day in that week, without my say, like say on a Thursday or something, she just, like, I had my suitcase in my room because I knew I was going back, so I didn't really unpack. She just came in and she took all my clothes and put it all in the drawers, and she took my suitcase out of the room, and she turned to me and says, "I've had it with this. You're going to stay here the rest of the year." And I literally didn't say anything. She just closed the door and walked out of the room. I was like, okay, I guess I'm staying here now. Yeah. So I stayed with Eva, and I don't know. Yeah, at the time we had three players. It was myself, Peter Abrick, and Dean Haig. And through the years, I had, Troy Crowder lived there, and Doug Stromback and Rich Stromback. Like, we had a lot of players. Eva had up to three players, at least two, but up to three players. And she was like absolutely, truly my mom away from home. Like, she treated me like one of her children. Gave me that hug when I needed a hug, and gave me a tap on the ass and say, like, pull your stuff together, when I needed that. And for years, I came home and lived with Eva in the summers. I want to say probably like another 6 years after that. I came back and we'd golf every day. Like, she was so good to me. I mean, I'm assuming she enjoyed my company too, because she kept letting me come back. But I have nothing but positive things to say about my billet experiences. And both of them actually, like Norma and Marie, were really nice people, very nice people. And Eva was sensational.
When I was living in North Bay, that's where I lived, up on Francis Street. Loved the neighborhood. One of my favorites.
Yeah. I still remember that was the only problem. I didn't have a car at the time, so I didn't have, a kind of a way to get back, and I had to rely on other people. Where Eva lived on Brook Street, which is over by Brook Street School. I don't know if that's familiar to you guys. I still remember me and Darren Smith. There was another guy that lived with us, and we were farting around with this light that was over the table. Like, Eva turned around with a meter stick and just whacked it right across our fingers. I was like, oh. But we deserved it, right? Like, what are we going to say?
Fair enough. So moving on a little bit from your days in North Bay, although this happened while you were playing for the Centennials, drafted in the 4th round by the Caps, 82nd overall. What was that like, going through the draft and all that process?
Well, I will say that it was, it would be interesting actually to talk to someone like Nick, who had been in Toronto, because I would go at home, obviously in the summers, to Thunder Bay. And I didn't go. I think my draft was in Toronto. I really can't say Toronto or Montreal, and that was too big an expense for me to go down for that. I felt like I was going to get drafted. I think I was rated 83 and went 84th, or 84th and went 83, whatever. And actually, it would happen the same way. I came home from a shift that I worked at Safeways, and my dad said, "You got to phone Jack Button with the Washington Capitals," which is obviously at the time then I knew that I got drafted by Washington. And it was like, okay, it was exciting. It's funny. I remember at the time because it just seemed like not really exciting, and I know I don't know if I was disconnected but I kind of went almost exactly where I thought. So it wasn't like disappointing or exciting, because it seemed like, okay, that's where I'm going to get drafted. So I knew beforehand. And there wasn't all the buildup that there is today, which is great. Like, they do such great fanfare, and they have that, where the kids get together to all go and get the
Combine. Or the Combine. Not the Combine.
Like, they had nothing like that. I got a few phone calls is what happened, before one of them was obviously Washington. There was a couple other teams that called. And really a 10-minute conversation, 15-minute conversation, maybe. Like, it wasn't very in depth like it is now that they go into, family history and everything else. And people were, after I got drafted, and obviously I let my friends, my family know. And then they were like, "Ooh, geez, that was a bad team for you to go to," because they started listing the defensemen that they had there. So they had, again, I don't know how, if I'm like Rod Langway, Larry Murphy, Kevin Hatcher, Gary Galley, and I'm missing someone. Anyway,
I think Scott Stevens was there at the time too.
Scott Stevens, that's the one I'm missing. Scott Stevens, and I was like, they were like, "You're never going to make it." Like, you never, and I never ever thought of it that way. And it's funny because I would arguably say that was the biggest break I got, because we had all of those all-star Norris Trophy. Well, like Scott Stevens just won a Norris Trophy, or not Scott Stevens, Rod Langway just won a Norris Trophy.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kevin Hatcher scored 20 goals. Scott Stevens was like Larry Murphy, like all these, they were the all-stars. So what happened was my first camp, I can't remember if it was my first camp or my second camp. I believe it was my first camp. Is that all those guys were away at Canada Cup, like all of them, like they were all on teams. Maybe Scott Stevens didn't make it, I can't remember. And so all of us had to play in the exhibition games, and I had a really good exhibition season. And all of a sudden, I went from this fourth rounder to a top prospect, all in 5 games.
Wow.
And yeah, and it was certainly hard. Now, when I actually made the transition from junior to pro, like those guys were still there. And really, in the games that I did play, which were here and there, I would open the door and let them out, and open the door and let them back in. Like I would get maybe 2 shifts a period, like maybe. And it would be for sure against the other team's fourth line. So if we were on the road, I would play even less, because there's a chance that it wouldn't be the fourth line. So that part of it was certainly difficult, but it kind of worked in my favor at the beginning.
When we didn't talk to him when he was on, but we had Greg the Burge, of course, the color commentator with Your TV, and he told me one time that we were having a couple of pops after a Battalion game out at a restaurant. And he was telling me that Brian Murray was the coach when he was there, and he said Bergie was the type of guy that if he was on the ice and Wayne Gretzky got on the ice, Brian Murray was yelling at him, "Get the hell off the ice," type of thing too. So
listen, I got a story for that. Like my very, you're never going to believe this. I believe that this is this quote, or you can look it up online or whatever. So I get called up from Fort Wayne, and our very first game is against the Edmonton Oilers. And that is Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, Yari Curry, Paul Coffey, Grant Fuhr, Edmonton Oilers. Like this is when they're rolling.
Yeah.
I'm sat there for a half a game, and I have not got on the ice, and I'm fine. Like I'm in front row. I'm like, this is an all-star game. Like I've got all of our defense, and we still have Mike Gartner and Bobby Carter, and like the Oilers were full of all-star teams. Like this is great, front row. Anyway, we're about 10 minutes into the first period. We have a face-off in our end, and it's 4-on-4. That was at the time coincidental minors, so 4-on-4. And Brian Murray calls me to go on the ice. Exactly. I'm almost stiff from sitting here like this, and I turned around and looked at him like, "You miscalled, right?" Like not me. And he gave me one of those. Go. So I get on the ice, and there's a face-off in our end. The center is Wayne Gretzky. The winger is Curry. The defenseman is Coffey, and the other defenseman is Lowe. I'm telling you, I'm like, oh my God. Like, I'm not kidding you. Oh my God. So we win the draw. Kevin Hatcher's my partner. He gets in behind the net. I fan out to the boards. He gives me the puck. I skate to the red line, and I dumped it in, and it was on the board side. And I turned around and went right to the bench and stood there. Well, they're all looking at me, and no one's ready to jump because no one's even been called yet. Like the whole play has been maybe 3 seconds. Finally, someone jumps over the boards, and I jump off the ice. Like my first NHL shift may have been 5 seconds. And the guy interviews me at the end of the game, and he says, my first shift being with Wayne Gretzky. And I said, I don't know. I didn't know if I should ask his autograph or check him or ask his autograph. I can't remember. And that's my story of the first shift. But to go along with what Greg said, we were playing in Detroit, and of course I was out against the fourth line. But who comes out after the fourth line? But normally the first line.
Yeah,
I'm on the ice, and Steve Yzerman gets on the ice, and you would have thought the building was on fire. Like Brian Murray was screaming at the very top of my lungs. And I was just like, oh my God, get me off the ice. Get me. Like, I felt like I could be on the ice, but clearly he did not feel like I could be on the ice. And he was screaming for me to get off the ice. So I know what Greg feels like.
How long did it take him to finally say, hey, Yzerman's out? You go back now.
Actually, again, it's funny. I would say probably my third year, we had a bunch of injuries again. And it's funny as a younger player, and every player will say it, but circumstances sometimes drive how things happen. And we had a lot of injuries, and I had to play more significant minutes. And with those significant minutes, became more confident, and I played better. And Brian would then use me in key positions, which again, I guess took advantage of a situation. But even as a young player, like sitting and getting dressed for a game with those guys as the other defensemen, like, what am I going to go into this office and say, like, I need to play more? Like, what? More than who? Like, Rod Langwood, Kevin Hatcher, Scott Stevens, they played like 27, 28 minutes. Be happy with your 2-3 minutes. And well, get better in practice.
Can you still recall your first NHL goal?
Yeah, against Tom Barrasso. I think I might actually have a copy of it. And I went haywire, and I can't remember now if it was a bank pass off the boards or if someone shot it and it came out to me. Anyway, I came in one time to scored, and I am almost very, very certain that Bent Gustafson tipped the puck in the net. But because I acted like a lunatic after it by like jumping and screaming in the air, that he like saved me from public embarrassment by saying that I scored. And I do have that. It's a VHS. Well, there's my age. That's a VHS tape. The puck seems to take a funny turn and went in between Tom Barrasso's legs. But I got the puck over there.
Well,
I did score other ones though.
Yeah, exactly. Well, at least it wasn't the only one, right? So,
well, for my second NHL shift, we were playing against the Islanders. So we went first one against the Oilers, second one against the Islanders, and I think it was Patrick Sundstrom turned up, hit me down the side, and I took a shot, went off the inside post and out. And I still remember coming back to the bench thinking, this is not going to be as hard as I thought. And man, I was wrong. I was really, really wrong.
So a few more years go by, and finally the Capitals trade you to Buffalo. What was that first trade like for you?
Yeah, so I'd never been traded or moved before. So, it was at the end of training camp. I got the phone call. We had an off day that day, and David Poyle phoned and said that, Jerry Meehan's going to be calling you, Buffalo Sabres, thanks for your or whatnot. And I really was like, I'm not sure if I said thank you to Dave David, or what. I was really out and left, like, just thank you. Yes. Okay. And hang up. And I was, because that next day I was supposed to be going to look for an apartment in Washington. So not so much anymore. And so I don't know, 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever, Jerry Meehan phones and, welcome to the club, this and that, and come to Buffalo. So the next day or maybe later that day, I drove up to Buffalo, met with Jerry. We had a couple of days practice, and he said, okay, well, you're going to be with the club, but we're going to start you in Rochester, but get a place here in Buffalo. Well, that wasn't so much true. I think I played probably 8 games. You guys could probably check the stats or whatever.
I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, 7 games.
7 games. Yeah. What did I play the next year? 8? 10?
10.
Yeah. So
32 total.
Yeah. So I again, I've never been traded. I'm thinking this, I guess they want me to play because that's what he's saying. But I moved down to, I lived in Buffalo and had to drive back and forth to Rochester. Funny story about that trade though. So David Poyle reacquired me in Nashville. And so one morning we're all down, we're having our coffees before practice, watching TV. And he says, Bill, have I ever told you the story about you getting traded to Buffalo? And I said, no. And he said, well, me and Jerry Meehan were really hemming and hawing about it, like really, really hemming and hawing. Because Sean Anderson, I think, was a 3rd overall pick or a 4th overall pick or whatever that I got traded for. And he says, we were both really good golfers. So it finally came down to, I told Jerry Meehan that I would give him my driver Jerry Meehan's, no, I'm screwing this up. The deal ended up being me for Sean Anderson and a driver. So that meant that David Poyle got Jerry Meehan's driver, because that's what sealed the deal. And I swear if I spit that out, I'm going to say it backwards the next time. And I remember Brent Gilchrist saying, who was with us at the time in Nashville, he goes, no, you traded Billy for the driver, and then they threw in Sean Anderson.
Jeez.
Anyway, yeah, Buffalo was, I didn't play a whole lot there. Had 2 fairly good strong years in Rochester. And then the next year I didn't have a contract. And I was in Buffalo and I was skating by myself, which is awful to do. And, waiting for something to happen. And nothing happened. And Rick Dudley, who was the coach my first year in Buffalo before John Muckler took over. And anyway, he offered me to come down to San Diego just to skate with the guys, get in shape. When you get your contract, get out. Well, it ended up I was down there till March. So I played in San Diego till March. And then Buffalo signed me to a contract. And I played the last, 12, 15 games in Buffalo, and then some in playoffs. And it was, I got called up my first game. We were playing in Quebec, and I scored and I got an assist. And then I was a healthy scratch the next game. I'm telling you. Then the next game we played, I think it might have been against Hartford, or maybe anyway. And I scored again. And then I got healthy scratched again. And I was like, what the heck do I got to do to stay in the lineup? Anyways, it all works out, right? It was so I had John Muckler as a coach there. And we, at the end of that year, they had to protect players. I didn't get protected, and off to Anaheim.
All right. So that's where
he's been waiting for this so long.
So that first year, let's talk about an expansion draft for us. I've never talked to someone who's been a part of an expansion team or expansion draft. What was the whole surrounding like? I mean, you're going to play for a team wearing these colors. What's going through your brain?
Yeah. So they brought all of the expansion picks down to Anaheim. And I still remember we had to put those shirts on, and we went to the Pirates of the Caribbean in Disney World, right? It's Disney World. Yeah, Disneyland. Yeah. And I got the picture upstairs. It's in my attic. And we're all dressed as pirates with our jerseys on this boat. And it just seemed really, Mighty Ducks, like the show, like really hokey, kind of
corny.
Yeah. Now once the season started, completely different. Like once training camp came, like it was business, but the lead up to that, and maybe they did a great job, publicizing the team. Like it was a newish market, like certainly LA's down there, but it's a suburb of LA, and they never had hockey there. I still remember, we were sitting in the dressing room before our first game, and Michael Eisner came in. Well, Michael Eisner had this. Well, I didn't know it was Michael Eisner. I thought, I'm not sure what I thought. He looked like someone that they just yanked off the street. He had this old plaid jacket that had the patches on the up. Like you would never have expected who he was. Anyway, he came in and gave us a great talk for someone that's probably not really super, a great history of hockey. And off to the races we went. But yeah, they did a great job of promoting the team. Obviously, I shouldn't say we knew. As an athlete, you're always thinking that you can do better than what you should, or maybe what expectations are. We were hoping to make the playoffs. We had a fairly decent year for a team that was an expansion team, but they did a really good job of promoting the team down there.
Well, the team set a record for expansion team wins with 33, and you guys were as tough as nails. Todd Ewan, Stu Grimson. I mean, it feels like you guys were never afraid to step on the ice.
Yeah, we had Troy Loney was our captain, or Troy Loney was out there. Yeah, we had, and if I remember, there was something about that too, that we weren't going to be pushed around, and clearly we weren't. And these guys played like, not sure how much Troy and Todd would have played like in terms of regular shift back then, but they played and they were fierce, and we were opposite of. This was the kind of the joke at the time, like, how can you have these guys, like these particular guys and this team represent Disney, who is this kind of wholesome, kid friendly network, or not what network, but business organization. But for sure, that's how we started. And I would say even after I left, after the first year, for a couple of years after that, they were still pretty known as, you're going to play them, but you're going to feel it.
Was it tough getting fans amped up for the game, or were they always there with you guys?
I would say that they were always with us. They had now I don't know how the fan base developed as we went along, but I'm pretty sure we almost had a sellout every game. I can't say that for sure off the top of my head. But there was certainly an excitement about the team, like that, and again, they really promoted it to bring. Now, I wish I had some, I'm sure you guys remember when they used to bring the duck from the ceiling on like they had all kinds of gimmicky things like that. Tire.
Yep.
Yeah. To promote the interest in the game. And people obviously weren't really hockey knowledgeable, but they were interested in the game, and they were willing to learn the game. I was on quite a few teams, I guess, probably every team that really focused on developing minor hockey. Like, they weren't trying to go after the 30, 40, 50-year-old. They were trying to go after the kids, because they knew the kids would then pull on dad's and mom's leg and say, like, take me to the game. And I think they did a fantastic job of doing that, expanded the rinks. Minor hockey got to be big, as it is now in a lot of places in the States, because I think that's a common thread now. Like, don't worry about the 30, 40, 50-year-olds. Go after the kids, because the kids are going to want their parents to take them to the game.
Well, and that season alone in Anaheim was your best statistically as well, putting up 14 goals. As someone a couple of years prior who thought it was going to be easy, 14 is pretty good. So, what clicked for you that year?
That's hard to say. I guess I had my first one-way contract, and it seemed like I was going to be a fairly significant piece right away in training camp, as the way how they, we're designing a power play, penalty kill, and whatnot. And then they wanted me to go up the ice, until finally they said, okay, well, like, you can't always be going up the ice. Like, this era now where these guys go up the ice, like today, it's awesome. Like, I would have loved that. Go, because when I used to play, it was like, you can go up on the rush. The second the play goes sideways, you got to get out. Well, I watch the games now. Like, the play goes side, like the offensive D will be behind the defensive net and still fighting for a loose puck. Never ever do that. But I don't know. I got a really good, decent opportunity. We had a great group of guys down there that were obviously all in the same condition as us or me. Start having a new start. Kind of left off the protected list where you came from, and this was quite possibly everyone's last go at it. Like, where are you going from here? If you're not going to make it now, this is your opportunity. So yeah, it worked out.
I remember a couple of years ago when Vegas first came in, the narrative around them was kind of like the island of misfit toys, the outcasts or whatever. So that must have been the same situation for you guys.
I would completely agree with that 100%. And I would say that gives you a lot of fuel. Like I like to, when people doubt you. So there's an organization that maybe gave up on you is a strong statement, but they left you unprotected. So I would for sure. That's a great way to put it. A room full of misfits. It was funny because I really feel like everyone was really pulling for everyone's success, because there was no, like, we were all just lumped together. Like there was no like stratus of okay, you're the all-star, you're the first rounder, we were just a group of guys that kind of got left behind, see what we can do with it.
So after that, you move on down to St. Louis, and another trade about a year later. And then again, you find yourself in Tampa Bay, another spot where hockey's a bit new and it's a warm climate. I mean, not a bad place to play some hockey, but what are some of the challenges we don't know about playing with the Lightning?
Well, my years when I was playing, my first year when I was playing there, we played in the ballpark. We played in the where the Devil Rays play. So that certainly was a challenge. I don't know if we had, while I was there, I think it was the largest crowd ever at a Stanley Cup game, just because we were playing in the ball field, right? Like the rink was just that big. And I will say, and I remember we were playing Philly, and I'm driving into the rink, and they're tailgating. Like they're out there tailgating. They got barbecues, and I was like, holy cow, this is awesome. But I didn't find it challenging to be ready for the games at all. I found it. It's actually a nice place to live in Tampa. Certainly in the winters. I remember one road trip we came from Edmonton, which was, who knows, minus 20, minus 25, and we took an overnighter to Toronto. We're at a tiki hut, to Tampa, and we're at a tiki hut the next day in our shorts, and it was 75, 80 degrees. It's like, this is a pretty good gig. And we had two good teams when I was in Tampa too. So we made the playoffs one year, and I think we missed by 1 point one year. So our crowds were pretty decent. And then we moved into the new rink. I'm pretty sure that was my second year, and it was a beautiful rink at the time. I'm sure that's a while ago now. I'm sure it's not as nice as compared to some of the other ones being built, but it was pretty nice at the time. And then certainly the fans gravitated towards it.
Well, that first season you guys were in Tampa was your first season, was their first time making the playoffs too. And I watched those highlights, 6 games, and that was a tough looking 6 games. Yeah,
it was. It really went. And we were playing against that, the Legion of Doom line with Lindros and Renberg and Leclerc. And I unfortunately had to play against them.
Couldn't get off the ice after 5 seconds.
I was pretty, I was probably 212, 215 at the time, and they're like 235, and used it too, right? So it was a physical series. We were clearly outmanned, but again, you don't think that going in. You think, okay, we're gonna have our system, we're gonna have our game plan, we're gonna execute it, and that's the way we're gonna win. And at the end of the day, you lose, and okay, well, maybe we didn't quite have enough horses to put it over the top. But our goalie at the time, Darren Pupa, was a Vezina finalist, I believe, also that year. Like, I mean, it's easy to believe when you have a goalie like that.
6 to 9 years prior, you're being pulled off the ice when Stevie Y's coming out, and there you are out against the Legion of Doom. Like, what's the change like? Here you are against Eric Lindros and those guys.
Yeah, I never really thought about it. I guess it's just the maturing of your game and your understanding of it was really funny because I went, I guess everyone kind of breaks into the pro ranks as an offensive player. Like you're probably coming from in your junior or college or, you're European, you've probably been an offensive player and you need to work on your defense. Well, when I went to Tampa, like all of a sudden I was a top penalty kill unit. And I wasn't really kind of like I was maybe get out on the last 30 seconds of the power play, but I was more dependent on for playing against the other team's top lines and penalty killing. And you get more and more confidence as you're doing it and you're having success. Like if you're doing it and you're not having success, I don't know if that's going to give you a lot of confidence. But and then I'll always say this: as you get older and you start moving up in levels, like the game gets harder and it gets faster. And if you can't keep up with that mentally, like that's not a knock on the player. Like I guess from being a teacher, some people's processing skills are slower and they can't, retain all that information and compute it and spit it out as fast as they need to. And I was fortunate, like everyone in the NHL, that like you move up and if you're able to do that, you can keep going on. And so I always say this, I always started understanding the game and I could start seeing, okay, well, they're coming around the net. His options are going to be this, this, and this. Where before I would be just, okay, he's coming out of the net. What is he going to do? Like, instead of having okay, I have a pretty good idea. I'm going to wedge over here and take that option away and then react to it after that. So that's a long explanation for, Terry Chris gave me an excellent opportunity to all of a sudden like do a 180 with my game, or maybe not a 180, but at least a 45 or a 90 with being a hybrid defensive, offensive player with more responsibility probably on the defensive side of the game. And I loved it. I just loved it. I love blocking shots and taking hits to get the pucks out. And it really, I think, elevated my game going forward.
Well, then they ship you out to San Jose. They send you back to the West Coast, but this time Northern California. Where was how'd that one feel? I love San Jose. I played in great cities. I can't say anything bad about any city. I mean, people badmouth Buffalo. Buffalo is such a sports town. Like, they are such a sports town. They have rabid fans. They're awesome. San Jose, I lived in this little village in Los Gatos, just outside of San Jose, where you could walk anywhere to get your groceries, a restaurant, like whatever. It was a really nice community. The fans were awesome. And again, we played, we made the playoffs both years. I think I was the leading scoring defenseman both years. I may have been leading it was really good for a lot of different things. It was really good. And playing for Daryl Sutter, obviously with Calgary now, people could say like he was intense and he demanded, and if you responded, you were fine. And if you didn't respond, then you moved out of the way. I remember him once saying that if they can't, talking to players, I talked to one of our trainers once, and then he said, if they can't handle my pressure on them, they either won't be able to handle pressure in the Stanley Cups, and I can't have that. So I have nothing. He was great to me. He was hard on me, but it was fine. Which actually I revert back to, he was similar to Bert. If you're going to work and do what you're told and be all about the team, then he's going to love you. If you're going to slack off, and you could be the leading scorer, doesn't matter. If you're not having a good game, then you're not playing. It's all about accountability.
I think you see that too with him in Calgary right now with Johnny Gaudreau and all that stuff. Like he doesn't seem to be a big fan of those guys right now. So, well,
I said to, Ryan and Scott and Adam, I said, I'm telling you, he is going to go into that room and he's going to go right after the top players. He's not going to, he's going to have demands of the fourth line and the taxi squad. He is going to go right after the top players because they're going to be the ones that make the difference and drive the ship. And if they can't do it, then he's going to get rid of them.
Well, seems like things in Calgary are heading that way anyway.
Well, it was the same way in St. Louis with Mike Keenan, and they Daryl coached under Mike. Mike was the head coach in Chicago, and Daryl was the assistant. And Mike was the exact same way in St. Louis. Like, he went right at Brendan Shanahan, and he went at Brett Hull too. Like, he went and he went at Brent Shanahan until that's it. You're gone.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really realize that you would have had Mike Keenan as a coach in St. Louis. And you hear a lot of horror stories about the guy, but as a coach, what was he like?
He really leaned on his top players, like really, really leaned on them. And he was, I feel like Mike was certainly a motivator, but he would, let you play. Like, he didn't teach a whole lot of structure. We didn't work on our power play a lot. Like, he expected your skill, like, you're at this level, like your skill should be able to take over. not to say that you shouldn't be blocking shots or taking hits or doing whatever it is to win, but the actual strategy and structure to the game, I don't know if that was Mike's. Now, whether I might be wrong, I only played 48 games or whatever with him, but I didn't feel that he leaned as much on structure as he did on motivation, and he also very, very much relied on the older players controlling the room. We had guys like Glenn Anderson, Al McGinnis, Curtis Joseph. Like, I think he really counted on the older guys controlling the room.
Well, over the course of your career, you played for a lot of the same type of coaches. I imagine you liked it.
I didn't mind it. I didn't. And I guess I probably got it set up with Bert. And I could probably argue that I got it maybe really set up with my dad, because he was cut kind of along the same thing. He didn't really have a lot of time for people with excuses, or his kids with excuses. I didn't mind it. I don't. It's going to be. I guess we'll see how it works out in Calgary, because the players are certainly different than back when I played. Like, we just put your head down and play. Like, if the coach comes in and says something, you don't phone your agent or you phone your parents. You do whatever he says to do, or you're going to get moved. I don't. It's probably a blend of that. That's probably correct. I think. Maybe you shouldn't be walking on eggshells when you walk into the dressing room after a bad game, which I certainly did in my career. And maybe sometimes you do need to walk on eggshells when you've had a bad game, because you let your team down or you weren't ready to play, because because you're accountable to every guy in the room, including the staff.
So after San Jose, we circle back to how we started everything out. You end up in Tampa Bay again. You're named the captain. 14 games later, they put you on waivers, and Nashville picks you up. How awesome was it moving to Music City?
Yeah, so I went there. I think it was their second year of existence.
Yep.
And the fan base there was nuts, like nuts. And well, I still today, right? Like their fan base is, for
cars and everything.
Yeah, it's crazy. Now, we obviously didn't have a playoff team at the time. But we had all kinds of country music stars that would go. We had the bunch of the Tennessee Titans that used to come to our games. We'd see them after, and then we'd go to their games. It was a real showman atmosphere there, I guess I would say. And I still always remember our marketing guy saying, it's up to us to entertain these people the second they walk into the building till they leave. There needs to be something going on to occupy them, whatever it is. As they're walking down the corridor, like the something going on in the TVs, or maybe there's something on the floor, like see how hard you can shoot the slap shot. And then when they get in the stands, when the pucks blow or the whistle blows, then like a band plays or shooting T-shirts and I was like, that is great. Like, I think that's great. And he said, because we are trying to get every other, like, we're trying to get the Tennessee Titan fan. We're trying to get Vanderbilt basketball fan. Like, we're fighting for all of these fans.
Was marketing responsible for you keeping the sweet handlebar mustache?
Yeah. Yeah, I had that. I brought my second year in Tampa, because I always used to like growing a playoff beard, and we didn't make the playoffs. So I thought, well, I'm going to grow something anyway, just at the end of the season. And then I kept that thing forever. I don't know why. Like, I just kept it forever. And then my mom, when I finally shaved it off, my mom was so upset at me. She goes, I just associate that with you. And I'm like, geez, Mom, like, it's just a mustache or handlebars or whatever you want to call it. I'm still your son.
So I believe Barry Trotz would have been your coach then as well, too. He was the only coach in Nashville for years. What was he? He goes on and wins a cup with Washington and stuff. What was he like to play for?
Completely opposite of like a Daryl, Mike, or Bert. Like Barry might have been one of the nicest people I've met in hockey. Like, he was so sincere, good knowledge of the game, obviously, but he motivated so, like, he'd bring you in, and he'd just like what do you guys think? Like we got to get going. Like, what do you think I could do? Should we do this? Should we do like? He was so sincere, such a nice person. So great to see his success, and his longevity has been awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But I still, I probably shouldn't tell the story, but we were in Calgary and we played a bad first or second period, whatever it is. And we have these big orange Gatorade tubs or whatever in the middle of the dressing room. So anyway, Barry comes in and he's yelling at us, and he goes to push the Gatorade. Well, the thing is full, and it's so heavy, and he pushes and pushes and pushes, and until finally he can't push it over, and he just storms out of the room. And I remember thinking, "Oh, Barry, like it's not you. Like that's not you. Like that's just not you. Like I know you're mad, but that's not you."
Yeah.
It seemed fitting that he couldn't push it off. And it wasn't like he was weak. I'm telling you, these things are so heavy. Like,
well, how nice was it to stay in one place for 4 seasons too?
Yeah, it was nice. And another nice group of players I played with. My son was born there. My daughter was born in San Jose. It was really nice. I enjoyed it. It was nice. It's funny when I went to Nashville. I owned the house here in North Bay. I owned a house in San Jose. I owned a house in Tampa. And I was like, there's no way I'm buying a house in Nashville. Like, I can't own 4 houses.
You're a real estate mogul all of a sudden.
Ridiculous. So then I ended up selling the 2 almost back to back in Florida and San Jose. And then I ended up staying in Tampa for 4 years. There's where I should have bought a house instead of paying rent for 4 years. But anyway.
So what went into the decision to finally hang him up?
Well, a couple things. I had an offer to go to Buffalo. Geez, I don't even know if I can tell you all this. Yeah, I don't know if I could share what.
That's all good.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all good. But yeah, so all roads kind of lead back to North Bay. What was you mentioned you had the house in North Bay and everything. What made obviously you played junior here, but why North Bay over maybe going back to your hometown of Thunder Bay?
Okay, so I have nothing bad to say about Thunder Bay. My only thing, strike against Thunder Bay, I guess this is a bad thing, but I have nothing bad to say about Thunder Bay, the city. It's just so far. It is so far. And I ended up meeting a lot of great people here in North Bay. I love this community. You know, it borders on the lakes. I felt that at the end of my career was truly like, okay, where are we going to live? Like, is this where we're going to stay? I was in North Bay at the time, or do we want to go like somewhere down the States, and go there? But this is where I decided. Super, super happy with the choice, and would clearly make it again. I have so many good friends and connections in this town. It's awesome.
And you went back to school too.
Yeah. Well, I actually started going back to school after the St. Louis year, because we had a lockout. So I still remember I was sitting in Redbridge, and it was middle October, like the 15th or 16th, which was our payday. And I remember sitting in there thinking, okay, I'm supposed to be getting paid today, and I'm not, because we're locked out. I need to figure out what I'm going to do after hockey's done. So that year I didn't get my grade 13 after 3 years in grade 13. I didn't quite get there. That's the kind of joke of the school. My focus would be in school. I got 3 credits in 3 years, and I would never say to any young player. Like, that was just so stupid and such a waste of time that I did that. But anyway, so I had to go write a equivalency essay up at Nipissing. And I passed. You either get a 1 or a 2, and I got a 1. And I was signed up to go in January to Nipissing. And then whatever date was, I was watching TSN, and the lockout's over. And I loaded the car up, went back to St. Louis. And then that summer, I enrolled in summer schools. So I kept doing summer school during the off season until my daughter was born, because then it was too busy in the summer. And I picked away about a year. I got about a year done. And then after, when I came back, I went full time and got it, and then got my teaching degree after that.
How ironic, a guy who didn't like school is all of a sudden a teacher.
Ridiculous.
How come a teacher?
Well, I really always kind of liked being around kids, and I like teaching, and I, the energy that, and I still feel the same today. I love being in the dressing room and the energy that the young guys have. I like, they come in, they're laughing, they're like, it's just great. Like, and there's certainly challenges to teaching, like there's challenges in anything. And I think I taught for maybe 6 years, had a great relationship with a teacher that I used to go in for all the time, which allowed me to be in the same classroom, which was great because we used to help out on curriculum and the report cards, and I was able to teach both my son and my daughter. So it was great. I enjoyed it.
For someone who maybe doesn't know, whereabouts, like what did you teach and whereabouts were you teaching?
I taught out in Ferris Glen. I was actually educated to teach in high school. But my kids were going to Ferris Glen at the time, which is in Corbeil, sorry. Mm-hmm. And one of the teachers came up and asked me, like, would you be a supply for me? And I was in my head going, man, this is too good. Like, because now I could be here. I'll come with my kids and they could pick me up. I'll pick them up when I leave. Don't have to worry about daycare or anything like that. And then, you get familiar, right? So I just stayed there. I stayed in the same school. You get to know the secretaries, you get to know the principals, the custodians, and everything. And it was great that, you go to you're part of the Christmas concerts all of a sudden, and the spring fling and the fall fair. So that's where I taught. And I think 6 years out there. And then on.
How cool was it when the North Bay Battalion finally rolled back into town?
Awesome. I hate to say, I never thought that major junior hockey would come back here. So it was super exciting to know that they were coming back. Went out and got my season tickets. It was great, and so happy. Still not because I'm coaching there, but still happy. I will long go to the games whenever that ends. I super excited. I think it gives the town an identity. I always thought to myself when I played here with the Centennials, like, you can either hate the Centennials or love the Centennials, but you're still talking about the Centennials. And I think that it gives, northern communities are tied to hockey. I think it's great.
You had kind of been around the team in the background for a little while and whatnot. And then last year with all the changes and stuff, you finally step out onto the bench. What was that like? I
was a little hesitant. I'd actually talked to Ryan. And I said, okay, give me a couple of days, because you're right. I was in the background. I was helping out with video and whatnot. And then, we talk after the game. And this was a little bit more. Now we're talking about going on the road and occupying more time. But I thought to myself that, okay, you know what, this is going to be a short year. I'll give it a go. And if I like it, great. And if they want me back, great. And if I don't, then I'll tell them thank you very much. But I didn't go. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I really, really did not think that I would like it as much as I did. One of the things that I enjoyed the most is I always played with structure. I love seeing the players get it. Like it clicks with them. Like, okay, oh, that's why I'm standing. You're supposed to come across here on this side of the guy, because I just picked the puck up and now I've got it and I'm in their zone. Like those kind of moments. And as a coach, coaches, you take, some pride in getting them to understand the game and hoping that they can, again, like move it further and further up higher as they all are here to do.
We've asked this question of a lot of people that we've had on, and we'll ask it. I'll kind of do like a 3-tiered thing. I'll start off with, what was your favorite and least favorite place to play in the OHL?
Whoa. My least favorite probably was Mountain Arena. Like, that place was a dungeon. I also remember in Windsor, like, if you've had anyone my age on there, like, they would tell you, like, they would throw batteries or they would heat up quarters and nickels and throw it into the bench, like with their lighters. Like, I don't think that's Like that should be allowed. Like that's going a bit beyond we're not animals. Windsor was always a different place to play. And Peterborough with those weird corners that obviously they still have today. But I would probably say the Mountain Arena was not my favorite. My favorite, oddly, I'd probably say that I like playing in Kitchener and I like playing in Sudbury. But that would be back we used to have a schedule where we play I think it was Kitchener and Sudbury that we played probably 10 times each. So you really got to know the rink, right? And then you would play the other teams in your division maybe 6 times. And oddly enough, Sudbury's still the same arena today.
All right. So on the NHL level, what would be your favorite and least favorite places that you played?
For sure. When I played, it was whatever rink you were having success in. Like I scored a lot of goals in St. Louis, not for when I played in St. Louis, but against St. Louis. So that was one of my favorite places to play. My least favorite, it's funny because I always think about, I don't know if it was like Chicago Stadium was because you were down in the basement, the dungeon. And at any point you'd come in and put your equipment on, you had to shake it because you never know if it was a cockroach or a rat or a mouse it was just down and the floor was linoleum. It wasn't even have any rubber. It was like a damp. Anyway, and then you walk up. It's almost like Gladiator. You'd walk up and the fans were just sitting right on top of you and the rink was smaller. So it had all kinds of character. I don't know if it was a fairly intimidating rink because they normally have some pretty tough players also that played there. So I guess maybe I'll throw that out. But I will say that I miss those rinks this year, the Buffalo and the old Boston Gardens, Chicago Stadium that had a lot of character. Those 3 rinks were smaller. It's funny. I always say this when you get hit in Buffalo or Boston, it would always make a big rattle and because it was so loud. But as the boards had so much give to them, you'd just dip and then come back. And oftentimes if you came back fast enough, the other guy would be on the ice those rinks were certainly, they were smaller and I guess more physical, but the physicality of it wasn't as physical as Montreal, the old Montreal Forum. When you got hit into that, it was like being drove into a brick wall. There was no give to those boards at all.
And finally, on the coaching side of things in the OHL, if you had to pick your favorite and least favorite place that you've coached so far in the half season that you were with the team last year.
Yeah, I haven't seen all the rinks yet. So, I want to say we didn't have very good. Again, it's linked to success for me. I don't know what it is against Mississauga that we didn't have very good success against Mississauga. So I'd probably say Mississauga. And I do still like going to Sudbury. I mean, I hate Sudbury. I thought that I would get over that. And it's nothing against Sudbury, the town, or Sudbury, the people. But when I went into that rink again for the first time, it just flooded. I hate this team. I want to beat them so bad tonight. I want to beat Sudbury. So
it's funny because on the player side of things, a lot of guys have picked Peterborough and Sudbury as their least favorite arenas to go into. But on the off ice side of things, Uli was the same. He loves coaching in Sudbury. He's I loved playing against Sudbury. I love coaching against Sudbury. So it's funny, but yeah, that hatred never goes away.
Yeah, I thought it would, and the guys laughed at me, like Ryan and Adam, and really Mr. Abbott did too, because I was wound up as soon as we got in there, and I was relaxed on the bus drive. I didn't think, and then as soon as I got in there, I was just oh my god, I gotta win this,
hold me back.
Yeah, we gotta get this win. We need this win.
Oh, it's awesome. Well, Billy, we really appreciate your time today on the Frontline podcast. We really appreciate talking all your NHL days and then talking Battalion. One last thing I do have to ask though, what was it like going up against the Legion of Doom and future Hall of Famers and Yzerman and, Mary Lemieux. And then here you are with apples and pencils and pens teaching kids at Ferris Glen. What's the difference has got to be astronomical.
Sure. Yeah. It's funny, as a teacher, I guess you're trying to make a connection with the kids. I always feel like the biggest gains you're going to have is with the kid that is maybe not getting it, or you can't generate his interest or her interest. And I found that was my, and that doesn't even really mean that you turn them into A students or anything like that, but maybe you turn them from not wanting to come to school to wanting to come to school. And I really, but yeah, the differences between being a teacher, I had to supply once in a kindergarten class. Oh my word. It was, I couldn't, it took almost all recess because it was winter to get their stuff on to go out for recess. And it was but I didn't come back in. I'm like, we just barely stepped outside. Then come back in, you got to get them all undressed again. And I will say that being a teacher or being a past player was a pretty good hook your first time in a classroom, because they thought that was pretty neat. But I would say that probably lasted about half the day. And after that, you better have more than that, because they don't hold their interest that long on what you used to do. It's what are you doing?
Yeah, you used to take Eric Lindros into the corner. Well, I don't care about math today, so no.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, we really appreciate your time again. Like I said, it's been great hearing all these stories.
Great, thanks, guys. Anytime.
Thanks a lot, Billy. Oh, I was going to mention something to him. I think I'll just mention it now. I don't know if he'll ever hear it, but it'll be fun. All right, we have to say a huge thank you to one of my favorite guests so far. And that's nothing against the other ones. I just really wanted to talk about the Anaheim Mighty Ducks with Billy Houlder. And he doesn't know, but the first video game goal I ever scored in an NHL game was with him and the San Jose Sharks on my Nintendo 64 NHL 99. I hope you're listening to this, Billy, and you know how much it means to me. All right. He's Courtney Kenny. I'm Tom Parisi. Our producer is Ben Sargent, who makes us sound fantastic. You can find us a lot of great places. You can watch us on YouTube. You can listen to us on Google Podcast, Apple Music, Spotify. Find us on any battalion social media you can think of. We can be there. And weeknights, your TV, you can watch this in a shorter form. And if you want the full one, go to where I told you before, and you shan't be disappointed. This is the Front Line, and this was fun. We got to do it again sometime.